Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, another banger React video. Haven't done any React content for a bit. Kind of leaving the YouTube page a little bit stale lately, but we're back doing some content, and we're going to be reacting to what the 90s thought the internet would become back in the 90s. I've been kind of intrigued with, I grew up in this area, and I've been kind of looking back, thinking to myself, and doing a lot of research on like how the '90s was and the early 2000s on the internet. So we're gonna check this out.
Internet is that massive computer
Right.
network, the one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
The internet is important. You don't need me, a guy on the internet, to tell you that. Believe it or not, at one point the internet was niche. But now, of course, it is the all-consuming force in our modern society. I mean, you can't really overemphasize how essential the internet is now. But go back 20 or even 30 years ago, and things were very different.
Oh yeah,
Some knew that this
I remember
would be a
it too,
big
man. I
deal,
remember it like it was
and
yesterday.
Some were less certain of how useful the internet could actually be. And so the predictions for this specific topic are a little bit different than those that I've covered in the past few videos. I mean, of course, there was some wacky predictions about mind linking and VR streaming and other stuff that
VR streaming's a
mostly
thing.
already covered. But today I want to stay purely within the realm of the internet and what people thought it would become. Context is important here. In the 90s and the 2000s, accessing the internet
Should we call that number? Let's try and call that number. See what happens when we call that number. What is it? 1-800-614-434. What is that? Huh. I don't think it's anything, honestly. I mean, unless it's gonna. Oh, it just jumped. I mean, we're calling all the way back to the 90s, so guess it didn't work.
internet with usable speeds was basically impossible unless you were at home. In fact, a lot of people just weren't using the internet at all. In 1995, only 16 million people were
That's
online.
crazy,
That's
dude.
about half the number of people that bought the most recent Animal Crossing game. But
That's
it did grow
crazy.
quickly, and by 1999, that number had exploded to 248
Yeah,
million,
that was the
which is a
dot-com
lot.
bubble.
I mean, it's pretty close to the number of iPhones that are sold each year. And those that were online weren't getting the best experience. Almost everybody was using dial-up.
56K.
That's 56K speeds, 56
I remember that shit.
kilobits per second.
And it was 28.8K before that, and like you had to connect through your phone, and it would go through this whole spiel on the screen, and it would make all these weird noises. Let me see. Hold on. It was fucking weird, man.
Remember that 1 byte is 8 bits, so this is really, really, really slow. Slow enough that to download this image of a JPEG labeled JPEG, it would take 3.5 hours before you were done.
That's
To
wild.
download this song file, it would take 12 days. To download Call of Duty Black Ops, it would take 740 years. These speeds are slow, but file sizes were also much, much smaller, so it evened out. The expectation of the future was that speeds would increase, but this wasn't quite a guarantee like, say, transistors getting smaller. And the fast speeds of the time, they weren't that fast either. And in the early 2000s, broadband was defined as 4 megabits per second, which is about what I had for most of my life, so I guess that's fine. Of course, people did things on the internet. It wasn't such
Dude,
a
now I'm
niche
getting, like,
club, but overall,
980
the future
megabits per
was,
second.
well, uncertain. In 1999, David Bowie famously predicted that the internet would bring about unfathomable changes to everyday life. During the interview, he said, "I don't think we've seen even the tip of the iceberg. I think we're actually on the cusp of something exhilarating and terrifying." He also said,
Yeah,
"Where
it's
the interplay
wild,
between the
though.
user and
It's
the
a war
provider will
zone
be
out
so
there."
simpatico, it's going to crush our ideas of what mediums are all about." The interviewer responded with a very 1999 reply,
It's just a tool, though, isn't it?
No, it's not. No.
"The idea that the general public would actually want to use the internet en masse was still a very niche idea. The concept that it would become essential, well, that was only held by a select few. Some thought the internet itself was a fad, something
Crazy,
that
man.
would fail."
It's crazy that it went from that to every single human on the planet carrying around a computer in their pocket.
To even captivate the public on the level of radio or television. In 1995, Newsweek published an article claiming the internet was just that, another box of empty promises that would soon be forgotten as we return to the old ways. Digital futures would be uncanny to the public. People didn't want to learn online, and information was hard to come by anyway. The irony is that Newsweek itself would discontinue physical releases and now is an entity that only exists online. Some predictions were from the famed futurist Ray Kurzweil. In the late 90s, he said that by 2020 we would be able to access the internet from anywhere at all, from any device, and most of these devices would be on our wrists. Granted, some people do that, but, it's close enough. Remember, mobile data was, well, not even at 3G by this point. It was at no speed. Other predictions surrounded just basic interfacing. I mean, the internet kinda looked bad. And a future where all devices had
At
varying
the time,
screen
everybody thought
sizes
it looked
and
great.
aspect ratios and resolutions. Well, this would be a nightmare. How do you scale this to that? One prediction I enjoyed reading is somebody speculating that web pages would one day be able to shift and reformat themselves based on mobile or desktop devices. Something that is at the core of, well, the modern internet. But for as seemingly mundane as a prediction like this would be, we also had some that went a little too far. The cloud. Now, yes, to be fair, the cloud exists, but let me explain. The idea of an internet-connected cloud has been around since the very birth of the internet, and some believe that by 2020 this would really take off. Not like today, not just from storage or streaming games or whatever. It was something far wackier. They envisioned the cloud not as a network of servers and computers far away, but everywhere. Every device would be a part of this larger cloud, and the computational power of every consumer electronics would contribute to everybody else. Basically, you could have the ability to access all the world's computational power from your phone. If this were to happen today, well, how do I put it? Say your PlayStation is a couple teraflops. Now, 1,000 teraflops is a petaflop, and 1,000 of those is an exaflop. And if this were to happen, we could draw from potentially dozens or hundreds of exaflops at any given time. Frankly, I don't even know what that would look like. So why didn't this happen? The obvious issue here is one that we know very well of because of crypto mining. If you're doing something on a computer and it's trying to do something strenuous in the background, it's going to cause a lot of issues. It's going to get hot, it's going to rack up the electricity bill, and it'll slow down your device to a crawl. Now imagine this on a global scale and including mobile devices. Phones would drain battery insanely quickly. Computers would run at max clock speed even if they're just being idle. All because somebody across the globe is drawing power from your computer. Now it's possible there would be some setup where only a fraction of power would be drawn at a time, but even then, the amount of bandwidth to send that information constantly, that'd use a lot of data. And I have to imagine over overall internet speeds would suffer in tandem. Privacy-wise, this opens up even more issues. I mean, if every user has in some way access to everybody else's device, any crack in security would be far more catastrophic than the leaks we have today. And so, yeah, this was wrong, but overall, the 90s predictions were mostly underwhelming. Things that we got fairly quickly, like distribution of media and video streaming. So many of these predictions came true that we just think of them as mundane parts of life. Books will be digital. You can get anything online. The idea that the internet would become all-consuming, an essential part of everybody's life, that just sounded far-fetched. And in this way, the internet finds itself as, well, one of the few elements of futurism that not only worked, but surpassed any and all expectations people had for it. It was the thing futurists claimed would change the world, and it did. But if anything, they undersold it.